This is Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, looking at a game from the 2010 Olympiad with Magnus Carlsen with white, Francisco Vallejo-Pons with black, and Carlsen opening with e4, Vallejo-Pons with c5. And so knight c3, kind of signaling a closed Sicilian. Black plays a6. This is a really weird move order. Normally, you would see like d6, e6, knight c6, g6. A6 is a little bit strange. And so Carlsen plays knight g2. This is also pretty weird. Black does have the chance to play e5 if he wants here. And he could close down the center. It's just a different type of game. But instead he played d6. White could try to transpose to the kind of main lines of the Sicilian. It would look like it would be a Najdorf. But instead Carlsen, he just plays g3. And so this is basically a closed Sicilian now. So black's basic development. And so now with g6, d3, these are all pretty standard moves. One thing that maybe I would have liked to do if I were playing white is d4 here. Just to play it. Just to get it in so black doesn't get a chance to occupy it. And, this is interesting. Bishop e3 is a choice, but you do have to work with knight e5, so black's getting a little bit there. But even just knight to b3, this is fine. Sometimes you want to keep your knight on e2, so later you can play h3, g4, knight g3. Anyway, it's just an idea to play d4 right away. But Carlsen is, say, plays d3, and so now bishop e3, he could have played d4 in one move. It looks like he's preparing it now. Black with knight f6. Now d4 is just going to run to knight g4 and just be busted, basically. Knight g4 has got to be stopped, so h3. Bishop d7, so this is maybe kind of like highlights a drawback of playing this a6 move here. Looks kind of wasted. A normal idea, if you were playing a6, would be to prep b5, right? But now you're going to run into this little shot, e5, and white's going to be winning a piece in the game. So a6, I don't know, I guess you'd normally see like queen to c7 here to protect this and play for b5. But instead he played bishop d7, now queen d2, and maybe a lot of times, the bishop on d7 is obviously it's preparing for b5, but some setups black actually wants to play queen c8 and try to target this pawn. So maybe that's what black was hoping for. White played bishop h6, like if castles. But I don't know, I never really liked this plan for black, to be honest, because it always just seemed like white I don't know, I just always felt this was weird. Anyway, bishop h6 here, white is just trying to trade off one of black's best pieces. Black takes, the queen is a little misplaced, but, black's king is a little uncomfortable too. So knight d4, black decides it's time to open up counterplay. White doesn't quite have time to play e5, by the way, and it doesn't really do anything. Like e5, like let's say we did this, what are you gonna? I don't know. I don't even think it does anything. You probably just take it, because if you take, at the very least, we're gonna say black has incredible compensation for the exchange. So anyway, knight d4 was sharp though. E5 is definitely to be considered. White decides to take, now knight e2. Basically, maybe e5 is now forced to defend the pawn. I guess you could play rook c8. I thought this was kind of cool. If he takes, now you could play e5, right? When the knight moves, the rook is active. I don't know. I thought that was an idea. I think here rook c8 looked good, but the thing is, like with rook c8 is, what do you do with your king, right? Where does black's king go? Now white's queen here is seriously annoying. If you ever, I don't know. Black's king is just kind of stuck. So e5, castles. Definitely just wants to play f4, probably f5. That's a very easy plan. Black kicks the queen out. So if queen g7, he's just going to force him to trade queens. Black would definitely like that. So instead he goes back to d2. So now black with this knight e7 has an interesting idea with this knight e7 move. So f4 is very, very direct. He finally gets castled. but white has some pretty big ideas on the king side. So one thing I thought of first was f5. And, if he takes, we take. And the thing is, I don't know. I just don't really like it. Let's say knight takes. The knight's coming to e3. And so what if you get the exchange? I don't know. Maybe this doesn't quite work, right? With this queen check, but even the other way. Let's say f5, he takes, and even just bishop takes. I guess, again, it doesn't work, though, because of this queen g5 check. Right? So maybe this was worth considering f5 after all. This looks really pretty good. Just the f5 move, I think, I don't know. This looks like a nice move for white. Just with this check coming, this looks pretty good, honestly. The queen g5 check is very strong. But in the game, he played g4. And so black can't play f5 because of this same idea of opening the bishop. So that's one thing to really learn from this type of game. In the closed Sicilian, that rook really belongs on c8, pressuring this pawn. But where black's got it now is very exposed, and he's stopped from playing f5 and equalizing the space in the center. Although he would still be a lot worse because he's king. He doesn't have a bishop that could open there. So f6 is conceding space, and white plays rook f2, just a little preparatory move. And now knight c6. This is black's idea. Maybe he wants to take and play knight e5. And also after rook to f1, he plays queen a5. So a pretty sneaky move. Black is like saying, hey, I'll give you a couple of free tempos just to trade queens. Because black's king doesn't have that bishop, so it's not quite as safe. White plays c3. So nice move. Just says no way. If you want to take, this is just maybe going to help white open the center later. Black snatches a pawn, and at first you think he's crazy snatching a pawn. But white's attack is like it's taking time. He doesn't have anything concrete. He just has these pawns here. And black actually has a pretty nice idea with this. These backward queen maneuvers can be pretty tough to see. He wants to bring the queen back to f7. Now, obviously, if pawn takes, the queen's it's just going to go to e6, and it's still going to be nice. It's a good idea. It's a good regrouping. White plays g5, so this is kind of the most violent way to open the position. And if he takes, white is going to start tearing up the position. So now f5. This was really nice by Carlsen. Very nice idea. So g5. He opens a line, plays f5, gets a passed pawn, and this pawn, you can't even keep it. So black's queen is so far away. If his queen was on e7, it would be fine. But now the pawn is going to be lost. There's no way to if you play h6, he's going to play h4. All right, so very, very nice play by white, recognizing his king is protected with his bishop, and his pieces just stand a little bit better. Like black's minor pieces aren't really doing anything. And so that's why black, white is also better coordinated with his rooks. So opening the position, he's trying to do anything he can. And, if he takes, just this should be a win for white. This should be pretty easy. So f5 was really cool. If he takes, I guess you're just going to, well, you can just take with check, first of all, or you can just take this pawn. And obviously, black is not going to be able to take this because of his knight. He couldn't take it anyway. White's game is really nicely set up. So after f5, black goes back. Now white, he takes the pawn in the center. It's a good time. Black tries to develop a little bit. He could take, and we could see either takes here or f6. But the position right here is actually pretty unclear. So in the game, though, instead of capturing here, black said, hey, I need to complete my development. I need to get off this diagonal so I can take on f5. He played rook to e8. But the problem with this move is not making a concrete threat, right? And when there's so much pressure in this position, you can see white's pieces basically placed perfectly. The knight is influenced in the center and can always come to a more active spot. The bishop will defend the king. was ready just for the position to open. And the rook's obviously perfectly placed with the queen. So, I mean, this position is very nice for white. So when he takes on d4, this move doesn't do anything concrete. It's not going to get it cut. It's not going to cut it. I mean, black is just in a tough spot. So now white just pushes him back. He agrees to trade the knights. And now he plays f6. Very important to play f6. If he's greedy and he takes the pawn, black is going to establish control of f6, and black is actually going to have a pretty good endgame. If we capture and we do this, I mean, let's talk about material, right? I think, with the pawn structures, I like black's chances here. And also, he's got pawns on dark squares. His bishop is going to be doing a lot better than white's. So at least, black would have a better chance if he could blockade the dark squares on f6. So white plays f6. You don't want to get your rook stuck behind your own pawn. And the idea is very much the same. If h6, he's going to play h4. And if he captures, we're doing anything we can to open the position. And if queen h7, it actually looks like black is doing pretty well, right? If queen here, we have like rook e5, and black is starting to fight back. But if he takes, he trades queens, plays f7, this is really just going to be game over. Black is going to be completely toast. If rook e5, he loses the d6 pawn, and while we'll have two connected passed pawns, should be enough to win. And if he plays rook to d8, we have rook up. Now the bishop has to move. Black it looks like he's protected, but this move e5, just really nice. It's very thematic, right? He's going to take and play bishop e4, and now white's bishop is going to win the game for him. This should be over. I mean, if bishop here, I don't know. It just seems like you can almost like play d6, or you could take. I mean, it just seems like black is going to get mated here. D6 here with this idea. Maybe black can get away with this. I don't know. It just seems kind of like a crime. But I think in these lines, white just seems to be doing better in general, honestly. So in the game, black got kind of spooked by those lines, and he played g4. Instead of playing h6, which we just looked at, followed by h4, he played g4 with the idea after capturing. Now he can take with the bishop. And basically, black was just in a worse position. I mean, Carlsen wins a lot of games like this, and you think it's lucky until you really, his opponent just blundered. But I mean, look at white's game. Like, all of his pieces were incredibly well coordinated. He has so much pressure that black just, at the wrong moment. I mean, he had made kind of a bad move before. Rook a8 didn't do anything. And now he just snapped, and queen f4, and the game's over. He's got to protect his bishop. If queen d7, you think this will work, but then you have f7. And now we can see white's pieces are perfectly coordinated. He's up a rook. So there's no way to defend the pawn and the bishop. And after h5, and here, Vallejo-Pons just resigned. I mean, he's, e5, e6, whatever you name it is going to come. White's just got too many pawns. And another example is very typical of Carlsen's style. It's just very direct moves, so solid, so flexible, and then all of a sudden, he doesn't have any weaknesses, and he just starts creating a little bit more pressure, until the opponent finally snaps. So it's Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, and thanks for tuning in.